Department about why it took more than a year to gather charging recommendations in a student's death. Yesterday, police recommended hazing charges in the death of WSU freshman Sam Martinez.
The problem is the statute of limitations for hazing has actually expired, making it so those charges cannot be prosecuted. Our Ian Smay spoke with Pullman Police and the chief today. Ian?
Whitney, a lawyer for the Martinez family, provided me with a statement today about the charging recommendations. The statement reads in part, quote, "It is with great sorrow and disappointment for the Martinez family to hear the news that the investigation was not completed in time to bring forward all of the potential criminal charges against the individuals who played a role in the hazing death of their beloved son and brother, Sam Martinez. This has been an unbearable, overwhelmingly painful experience for the Martinez family. However, they remain resolute." I spoke with Pullman Police Chief Gary Jenkins today about what led to delays in the investigation. Sam Martinez was a soccer-loving WSU freshman from Bellevue who died from alcohol poisoning after drinking at an Alpha Tau Omega fraternity event in 2019.
We wanted to do the best job possible to honor Mr. Martinez and his family. So I believe we have conducted a very thorough investigation.
Thursday, the Pullman Police Department recommended charges for hazing and providing liquor to a minor. The report did not recommend manslaughter charges. It is too late to file charges for hazing because more than a year has passed since Sam's death. Chief Gary Jenkins says it took a long time to track down witnesses who moved away.
The logistics of trying to set up in-person interviews with all the witnesses who many were not in Pullman when we were trying to interview them really added to the timeline of completing this investigation.
The other major hurdle was trying to access Martinez's cell phone for evidence.
We contracted with a company to try to do that for us, and they had it for quite a long time, and we actually did not get any results from that.
Jenkins says they had hazing charges in mind during the investigation and its one-year statute of limitations, but he says detectives didn't want to risk rushing the investigation.
We did not want to run into a double jeopardy problem where we, for example, would submit a misdemeanor case of hazing, but still have a potential for a manslaughter charge, which might be precluded from prosecution if some adjudication were made on the lesser charge.
This is what Sam's parents had to say to our sister station last July.
Sam was just absolutely pushed to the brink by this ritual, by this tradition of hazing, and left to die alone in the basement of that fraternity. It's devastating to think about.
Jenkins also told me the Pullman Police Department has been short-staffed and recruitment stalled when the pandemic hit. The Whitman County Prosecutor's Office is currently reviewing the recommendations. In the newsroom tonight, Ian Smay.
Police Chief Jenkins met with Bryan Kohberger while he was still the Pullman Police Chief on April 12, 2022, almost a year after that news update. There were some very disturbing information from that news update. Number one, who handled Sam's phone to try and obtain information from his phone that Jenkins speaks about in this interview?
The other major hurdle was trying to access Martinez's cell phone for evidence.
We contracted with a company to try to do that for us, and they had it for quite a long time, and we actually did not get any results from that.
Jenkins says they had hazing charges.
Curious if Sam's parents were given back his phone, and what type of phone was so difficult for the investigators to quote-unquote get into his phone to perform an extraction of the data. Number two is, what is Jenkins talking about when he says, quote-unquote, witnesses left and we couldn't get in touch with them? Why would you let people leave? Or even if they did leave, you can't find them? Did Gary Jenkins contact the FBI for help like Fry did for the Moscow, Idaho quadruple murder?
Chief Gary Jenkins says it took a long time to track down witnesses who moved away.
The logistics of trying to set up in-person interviews with all the witnesses who many were not in Pullman when we were trying to interview them really added to the timeline of completing this investigation.
The other major hurdle was trying to access Martinez's cell phone.
Sam was found in the basement in February of 2019. So you would have had February, March, April, and May. Those were all the months before summer break would have started. Not to mention all the months in 2020. Jenkins retired as the police chief of Pullman Police Department in July of 2022, to only a month later double dipping the government by accepting a position with WSU Campus Police Department as the intern police chief. Truth and Transparency looked into articles written by the WSU Insider because TNT believes Bryan Kohberger would have done his research on the school's police department as well as Pullman's police department. He would have come across Sam's case as well as the WSU sexual misconduct claims. Between 2001 and 2007, WSU had interesting problems. The Pullman Police Department, interesting problems. The Daily Evergreen, March 28, 2007, WSU Police Ethics issues surface. And this was about police officers using company credit cards to make private personal purchases with their company cards. And a name there was Dawn Daniels was part of that during this investigation and lawsuit. Dawn Daniels was an officer for Pullman Police Department during a scandal that spanned between 2001 and 2004, where police department officers were using company credit cards for personal use. One of the officers was fired. Dawn Daniels managed to keep her job, and now today she is the assistant police chief at WSU. Dawn Daniels should ring a bell for a lot of people covering the Idaho 4 case, the University of Idaho murders. Bryan Kohberger, his search warrant of his apartment on WSU's campus was signed by Dawn Daniels. That officer that lost his job was able to actually sue Washington State University for violating his civil rights. And Bryan Jacobson, the African-American police officer that was the only person to be fired for using a company credit card for personal purchases, he actually was able to retain his job for being wrongfully terminated due to discrimination. Bryan Jacobson was employed with the Public Safety Department at Washington State University, and he was a student intern in 1988 and began actually working as a police officer for the department in 1990. Bryan had a very integral role in the department's data forensics lab, and his duties included investigating identity thefts. In this lawsuit, in this written work here, there were lots of letters, 19 letters communicating remand. Also at WSU, you were given a JP Morgan Chase corporate credit card to employees. The WSU state travel charge card policy. The policy requires employees to fully pay their monthly credit card bill upon receipt, and that they are strictly only for official university travel expenses. In November 2000, Bryan Jacobson was issued a JP Morgan Chase travel credit card. On or about December 9th, 2003, JP Morgan Chase contacted WSU's purchasing office. Due to a past due balance of X amount of dollars over a 90-day period, they looked further into this and saw that there were several purchases over $28,000. And of those purchases, here are some of the examples. Hooters of Pasadena, Evergreen Tire Factory, SeaWorld, tattoos, over $28,000. When they came back and when it was all said and done, only $2,300 of it was for actual use for the university. But Bryan Jacobson was not disputing the fact that he used his credit card inappropriately. What he was disputing and what he had a problem with is that he was fired and nobody else was. There was other people responsible, just like he was, for improperly using his company credit card. And one of those people was Dawn Daniels. Did Bryan Kohberger do his research before choosing WSU? When did Bryan Kohberger become aware of the possible corruption that lied within the walls of the WSU Police Department?